literally live right now.
Yeah, that's fine. You're the one that's supposed to start it.
I just literally said, I'm going to tweet out some stuff. Can either of you open this up while I tweet out some links? I literally just said
go
that.
fuck yourself. Nobody's watching anyway.
The people on replay are watching, and we see you, replay people.
Who's on replay?
I don't know. People watch this on replay. Even though we're talking about stuff, about games that
have already been
watch
played.
This on replay. That's weird.
I don't know. Yeah, I know people do. I mean, I guess they like to see us and watch on replay. Some of the information is somewhat good. Maybe they want to go back and troll us for all the stuff we got wrong. Maybe.
Welcome back.
What's with the Harry Carey voice every year?
I don't know. It's the one voice I can do.
Hey, we got tweets.
Like Smeagol.
We got links out. Links that are hopefully real and current. Last week I tweeted out the wrong one. My bad, folks.
You are the worst. Control C.
I don't think I'm the worst. I think if we ranked people, I'd be closer to not non-worst.
The worst.
All right, everybody. We're gonna let you file in before we get started on all the fun breakdown stuff. And I was told last week that all of your comments, I was seeing the YouTube people, but I wasn't seeing the Periscope people. So fear not. I will be checking out the Periscope chat as well, so you are not being left out in the cold. Sam doesn't care about your comments, though. He'd just rather ignore y'all.
Yeah, I don't really like people, so.
And that includes you, Periscope. Especially the replay people who your comments won't matter anyway because you're kind of yelling into the void. Can you even comment? I know on Twitch you can comment on replays, which I never understood.
I'm not going to answer your questions.
All right. Well, hey, why don't we get started now? Because now
hold on.
There's been enough time for people to come in.
You know it's labeled as week 4 with guest Scott Fish, right? On Periscope. Yep.
Well, I don't like that at all. How do I change that?
God, just technology retarded. Yeah.
It was set up for last week. It was set up for last week's show, and now I got to figure that out. So I'm going to let you.
All right, we have 10 people watching on Periscope.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and start with the Jets and Eagles. So I'm going to let you guys take that away while I figure out how to change this freaking thing on Periscope. Go ahead.
Well, Sam Darnold's not playing, so that so the Eagles secondary struggles. I think we all recognize that. I believe they've given up the most fantasy points to wide receivers. Let me check on that. But with Luke Falk starting, like I thought Robbie Anderson would be a good start this week, but I'm iffy now. But the Eagles are literally signing people off the street. They just signed Orlando Scandrick. They lost Avonte Maddox with that very scary hit. I believe they had to take off his mask, and he did not move leaving the field, but I believe he had feeling in all of his extremities in the hospital. So good luck to Avonte Maddox in his recovery. But that secondary is so bad that it's like one of those things where it's like, I understand it's Luke Falk, but do we start Robbie Anderson this week? Do we start any of the pass catchers this week for the Jets?
I think Ronald Darby is still out as well.
Yeah. I mean, they're starting 3 like off the street people. I mean, we know who Orlando Scandrick is, but he was a free agent.
Yeah. And the other side of this is the Jets defense is awfully beat up too. There's going to be an opportunity for garbage time at the very least. I mean, I think that the Eagles are going to be able to move the ball at will. So I'm not afraid of Robbie Anderson. I'm not really afraid of Luke Falk in a deeper super flex. I mean, you are kind of counting on garbage time, but I mean, so we've got 2 teams on bye. We've got Tennessee and Buffalo. I don't think you're starting anyone in that. So I mean, right off the top, 4 teams are just dead. The Raiders to me are dead. They're playing against the Bears in London. Like they're kind of a lot of players here who just kind of get scratched out just because of things like matchups. So I think that Robbie Anderson gets a bump just kind of through attrition.
Well, so you talk about those bad matchups. Here's a interesting matchup I personally have, and I think this might be a little bit selfish. It's still something that I'm sure people have to go up against. So I could start Robbie Anderson or DJ Chark. DJ Chark is facing according to my fantasy league, the number one pass defense in the league in the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers have allowed the 10th fewest fantasy points to wide receivers. I believe let me check this out real quick. The 6th fewest to fantasy QBs. I mean, DJ Chark is obviously the wide receiver 1 for.
So this is something I'm always curious about, though. For fantasy purposes, that's true. From an NFL perspective, is it for sure DJ Chark that gets James Bradbury? I'm not so sure.
Well, I don't know. I mean, who else are you going to have him cover?
I think D.D. Westbrook still might be the more talented guy.
But do you move Bradbury into the slot?
I'm not sure DD's the more talented guy, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm not either.
And again, I'm saying, put fantasy aside because we know for a fact who's more productive.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, who do you actually have to slow down? And I'm not saying that it's D.D. Westbrook. I'm just saying I'm curious. I'm not so sure that you single out any one of those guys. To be honest, I mean, you could just put James Bradbury on the right side, and if DJ Chark happens to be over there, then he's on Bradbury. But you could also move him to the left side. And you've got Bradbury on Conley and DJ Chark.
Well, Bradbury doesn't tend to shadow much, so I think it'll matter. I know PFF has Bradbury on Chark, and they're usually pretty sharp. So I would think that I think is the assignment he's hoping for.
Yeah. So it's I don't know. It's just something that I'm kind of curious about. I don't think that DJ Chark is that much better than the other guys that they have, that if you're a defensive coordinator, that you necessarily shadow him. So I guess it's all to say that I'm still starting DJ Chark there.
Over Anderson.
Yeah.
And then so I guess a couple more that people would have to face. So I'm looking at guys like Cole Beasley as well, facing a Tennessee Titans defense that has been good against wide receivers.
But especially the slot, right?
Yeah, they also have Matt Barkley as well. So Tennessee Titans are.
I think Josh Allen is playing.
Really?
Yeah, he cleared the concussion protocol. I believe he's going to start.
Wow,
that was the last I heard. So yeah, I'll be honest, I don't know what that does to Cole Beasley. They might have had the wide receivers might have been more legitimate for Buffalo with Matt Barkley. It's crazy.
I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, as much as I hate Josh Allen, it's Matt Barkley.
Yeah, a guy who actually stands there and throws. So, anyways, I mean, it's DJ Chark for me over all those guys. Just a little too much has to go right for somebody like Cole Beasley or even for Robbie Anderson.
What about
what's with this question in the chat? Tom Rathman or John Ritchie, half-point PPR? Isn't Rathman a fullback from the 80s?
So is John
Ritchie from the 90s, I believe. So, yeah, let's go with Rathman. I mean, he got Joe Montana throwing to him in retrospect, and yeah.
If we're in a time machine, we're going Ritchie.
Yeah.
All right, moving down to the next game now that we've kind of crushed that one. Jaguars at Panthers, you guys already talked about. Vikings at Giants. Let's talk about the squeaky wheels a bit here. Everyone's playing. Like, here, are you team? This is the week for Cousins, or our team? This is never happening for Cousins against the Giants. I mean, I would want to try to get him in there if I'm in if I'm in super flex and I have 3 quarterbacks and I've been benching Cousins. I mean, I'm coming out of the gate and hoping for the best here because this is like a now or never situation. I think just like Winston, it was for Winston a couple weeks back.
Yeah, it's Cousins. I'm on the side where just kind of is a PR move. If you're the Vikings, you have to throw the ball around today. So Cousins is a top 10 play for me. That I will say it's all ceiling. So if you've got a safer option, I think that you could bench Cousins in favor of a safer floor. But if you're an underdog today, if you're going to be chasing points, if you missed out on that Thursday night game, you went up against Russell Wilson, for instance, then I think that Cousins is the play today because he's got all the ceiling in the world.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I have a Vikings like super stack this week, but I don't know how you come out of that Bears game not throwing the ball more. They have to know that they cannot survive just running the ball in the NFC North now. So this is like Matt said, this is kind of the do or die moment for the Vikings for me is, are you going to play to the defense's weaknesses? And that is definitely through the air. It's definitely that secondary. I mean, they're not great against the run, but they're a lot better than they are against the pass. So I think they need to get Cousins going. I think they need to get Thielen and Diggs going, especially after all of these shit that's been going on this offseason, or not offseason, this past week. I think they have to throw the ball. So I really like Cousins, Diggs, and Thielen this week. I mean, I'm always going to like Cook as well, but I think they're going to throw a lot more.
Yeah, Cook is fine, and I think that they're going to be up so big in this one that you can even flex Alexander Madison in a pinch. I think that he's going to be startable too.
I think this will be a game where you're either like an embarrassment of riches, no matter who you started, or it's going to be heartbreak all the way around. Yep. So we'll see. We have the guy who asked about Tom Rathman has a serious question here: Smokey Brown or Demarcus Robinson?
Robinson,
definitely Robinson.
Yeah, you don't. That Tennessee Buffalo game is going to be super ugly. We'll get to that in a bit, but yeah, I would go definitely with Demarcus Robinson. Sammy Watkins is playing, but I don't know. Yeah, I mean, his target share has been going down.
And he'll draw Pierre Desir, the kind of the only cover guy that they really have in Indianapolis. I mean, I guess Kenny Moore's been pretty good too, but Robinson has a much better matchup than Watkins will.
Yeah, absolutely. How about over going back to the Giants and Vikings game, over on the Giants side of the ball? This is probably the last situation where you could ever theoretically use Wayne Gallman before Saquon probably comes back. Can you even use him? I mean, against the Vikings, he looked good last week. But before he probably goes back to the waiver wire forever once Barkley is back fully. Don't drop him just in case things go sideways. Not rooting for that or anything. But against the Vikings in a game where they're probably going to be behind, if you have Wayne Gallman, are you considering starting him, or is this like too bad if you benched him last week, you're never going to get to use him situation?
I mean, I think he's going to get enough volume. Just on volume alone, I think he's startable. I mean, I would temper expectations because the Vikings defense has been good this season. I mean, especially against the run, they ranked 4th in DVOA. Let's see. Sorry. They've allowed the 8th fewest fantasy points to running backs. But, I mean, just based on pure volume and based off of, like, the bye weeks plus the bad matchups, yeah, I think Gallman's startable, at least in a flex this week.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with flex at best, kind of a low-end flex. But, I mean, you're kind of chasing garbage time. You're chasing touchdowns, hoping for kind of a PI in the end zone, and then he punches it in. That's kind of best case scenario. I mean, I do think that Minnesota is going to be up enough that you might get some late production from Gallman. I don't agree on the volume piece, but I think that in the end he's gonna end up with flex worthy numbers.
We'll get a good idea of how much we can trust Daniel Jones this week against a depending on the week, a tough Vikings defense, maybe not. We'll see this week how good or bad they are, or how good or bad Daniel Dimes is, or Danny Dimes, whatever we're going to call him. He has Golden Tate coming back. He has Sterling Shepard on a somewhat difficult game, I guess, against Rhodes, and Evan Ingram in there. But you also have, we'll see if he's going to spread the ball out to the other guys as well, like Slayton. So do you feel confident starting guys like Tate out of the back, like if you're desperate at a flex spot, or is this like a wait and see against kind of a tougher defense? What do you guys think of just all the pass catchers? Obviously, you're starting Shepard and Ingram pretty much no matter what. Ingram no matter what. Do you feel confident starting Shepard kind of regardless here? It's kind of a weird trap game because he's got a tough matchup. Tate's back, and we're not really sure what to expect. So I guess Shepard is the guy to hone in on here. How confident are you in just starting him like usual?
Well, so the Vikings actually have not been fantastic against wide receivers this season. Xavier Rhodes has looked not like the same quarterback. So this is more flex based, but I wouldn't be too worried about Shepard. Tate is, I don't know. I think that's a wait and see for me. But with Shepard, the Vikings, while they haven't given up gigantic games, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 double-digit fantasy point games given up in 4 weeks. So it's not like they're shutting down wide receivers by any means. So I think Sterling Shepard's a good start, an okay start in the flex. But yeah, on Tate, I'm just I don't.
Here's an
know.
example in the charity league that we did for Canton. I'm starting Curtis Samuel, Alshon Jeffrey, T.Y. Hilton, and Mike Evans, and I'm not starting Shepard. I just put in Samuel over Shepard like this morning, and that's a situation where I felt like I didn't want to start Shepard. I'm not happy about it, but this week I am sitting him. Would you guys make another decision over any of those guys?
Go ahead, John.
To give you the guys again, in case you forgot, because I ran through them real quick. Yeah. I'm starting Samuel, Jeffrey, Hilton, and Evans over Shepard in my wide receiver for the charity league.
No, I'm good with that. I'm good with all of those. Yeah, to me, if you have the luxury of waiting to see what this, how they're going to split up the workload in the slot, I think that that's the move. Now, a lot of people aren't going to have that luxury. And I think that it's Shepard because I think they can move him around the formation the most and get him. I still try and avoid Xavier Rhodes. Despite what Stomp said, it's not the same. He's just completely dead the way it used to be lined up on Xavier Rhodes. But I think that they can move Sterling Shepard around and get him away from Xavier Rhodes. Whereas Golden Tate, if he's on the field, he's probably going to be in the slot. He could be on a pitch count today. But they might limit him just because of the matchup. So yeah, he's somebody that I'd like to avoid if at all possible today. I think he's in a wide receiver 4 conversation though. So, if you're desperate, I think that, you could get something out of him.
Yeah. We're going to go to some questions in the chat. First, Nick Faber said, give me Shepard. What do you mean in regards to that question? Who are you sitting of all those guys, Nick? Nick, the co-host of the Daily Blitz with me. So we're going to get to some questions. We'll come back to your answer. Tell me which guy you would actually sit if you want Shepard so much. Michael Stepney in the chat. Diggs or Robbie Anderson as a flex in 12-team PPR. My other starting wide receivers are Lockett and Fitzgerald. I strive to give as much information as possible.
Always appreciate that.
Yes. Stephon Diggs for sure. If Sam Darnold was back, I would be semi-interested in putting him in there against the Eagles. But for this week, definitely Stephon Diggs still.
Yeah, squeaky wheel's going to get some grease here. We did talk about this one offline, though, before we started.
Yeah.
And Stephon Diggs makes me a little bit nervous. He was maybe a little too squeaky this week. There might be some kind of disciplinary benching coming, but I don't think that you can count on it.
I don't think that's the case. I mean, they fined him $200,000. I think that is the disciplinary action there. I mean, that's a lot of money. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely Diggs. He's got his starting QB. He's against a horrendous secondary. He's the far better talent. If Robbie Anderson had Sam Darnold, it would make it a little bit closer, but I definitely think it's Diggs. I might,
even if Darnold was back, I'd probably still go Diggs, but it'd make me think about
it. Right.
Yeah.
But so who did the Cardinals play this week?
The shootout, the low key crappy shootout of the day.
About Robbie Anderson over Fitz, but yeah, that's not the case. So
yeah, plus with Kirk out, Fitz.
Robbie Anderson's the odd man out here.
Yeah. Darwin 711 in the chat, full point PPR, one wide receiver, one flex. He has Josh Gordon, Marquise Brown, Jarvis Landry, Josh Jacobs, and LaShawn McCoy. I'll give him the T again. That's Josh Gordon, Hollywood Brown, Landry, Josh Jacobs, LaShawn McCoy. He needs a wide receiver and a flex.
I'm eliminating Jacobs and McCoy right out off the bat. Jacobs because of matchup, McCoy because Damian Williams is practicing full all week. I believe all week, right?
Yeah.
McCoy's been better though. And man.
Well, that's fine, but I mean you're actually getting somebody that will take touches away from him.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm throwing Gordon in as my definite first for the wide receiver, and then it's close between Brown and Landry.
I mean, we know Washington's secondary is atrocious. They have given up, I believe, second most fantasy points to wide receivers on the season. So yeah, I mean, I think Gordon's a good play here.
That's mainly because Edelman's back. I don't think he's 100%. I don't know. I'm going with Landry. I'm hoping that he learned his lesson.
I knew you were. I don't know how to feel about Landry.
Well, I don't know. The risk you believe is the risk I believe. Baker Mayfield should have been going to Landry all along. That's why he looked crappy earlier. He was going deep and forcing it downfield. He didn't need to. Last week, he finally took what the defense was giving him. If Njoku was still there, maybe he'd be even more dangerous. But I know he's coming off the concussion. He was brought back. He's fine. So I'm assuming he's good to go. So I think they'll go back to the well and give him, this is PPR. Jarvis Landry is the man. So I'll go there. I think it's safe. Marquise Brown, if, whatever you need, you were to sever, you had a bunch of Seahawks against you and you're buried and you need upside. I'd go Hollywood. But if you're looking for just safe production, I'd go with Landry.
Mind you, the 49ers actually have a very good defense, or have been for the first 3 weeks. I mean, they rank second against the pass in DVOA. They've allowed I believe, they're a little bit down there. They're middle of the pack against wide receivers, I suppose. So
this is a game where I think having Odell Beckham Jr. on the team is one. This is where that helps Jarvis Landry quite a bit because who are you going to cover? If you're going to direct all your attention, right?
Right, and they've given up a lot of points to slot receivers. 14.3 in week 1 to Chris Godwin, 22.2 to Tyler Boyd in week 2, 17.1 to Juju in week 3. So Landry seems to be the wide receiver to start. I mean, you're not going to sit Odell, but I would trust Landry more than Odell this week. So yeah, I'll agree with Matt here with Landry.
Any different opinion there, John?
Yeah, totally. So I don't know if I should even give it. It's gonna just throw this thing into total chaos. Yeah. I will say I still like McCoy today. Indianapolis is the 9th worst against running backs, and I mean he's involved in the passing game. I still think that there's a possibility here that Damian Williams is on a pitch count at a kind of best case scenario. I think that McCoy is going to get the lion's share of that workload.
Okay, so who would your two be? You'd have McCoy and who?
So it also gets a little tough here. So Josh Gordon, I think, is safe. I'll take his floor, but as far as a high upside, kind of a Hail Mary type of thing, I'll go with Marquise Brown. I really like the Lamar. What? Say
for the sake of making this easy on the listener.
Uh-huh.
Me and Sam agreed. So just go with what we said.
Yep, that's
Jesus
like
Christ.
that. I was gonna mess
Like you threw two names out there that we were like, yeah, no.
Let's move on to the Falcons and Texans in Houston. Everyone's hoping this is a shootout. Deshaun Watson is, I'm thinking, due for a big game. Nuke hasn't hit yet. Fuller hasn't hit yet. Everyone in the world is waiting for them both to explode against Falcons with who are, have being banged up by injuries again. Their big safety is out. So I don't think we're going to tell anyone anything they don't really know here. Why don't we jump to people that there might be a question mark about? You're starting Julio against the wide receiver, against the Texans, who wide receiver ones destroy. What about Calvin Ridley, who apparently doesn't exist? What do you do with him in the flex spot?
Hold on. Now I need to call you out here.
Yeah.
Haven't you said in the past couple of weeks that Calvin Ridley's a must start?
Yes, and that was last week. I said, absolutely, I'm never sitting Calvin Ridley. But I couldn't assume that for another week they pretend like he doesn't exist. Austin Hooper continues to be, above what I expected from him. And then Mohamed Sanu jumps in there. And if I have Calvin Ridley, yes, I'm starting him in this one because not only do wide receiver ones destroy the Texans, but you have guys like Ted Ginn Jr. out there doing work against them. So yes, Calvin Ridley will be in my lineup, but this is my do or die week for Calvin Ridley. If they ignore him again, I don't know what you do.
Yeah, I can't do it because.
Are you starting him or Sterling Shepard?
Who?
I'll take Ridley there. I'll take Ridley over guys like Shepard, Mike Williams, DJ Chark. I'll take him over Chark. Kind of a low end flex, but they're probably going to be chasing points. It's a secondary that you can throw on a little bit. So there's not going to be a lot of volume available to him. That's the only reason that we're not talking about him kind of in wide receiver 2 territory.
So, but do we actually believe that Calvin Ridley is the wide receiver 2 on this team? Because now he is fourth. He's fourth.
I'm blindly still saying that. Yeah, I think if you can't get work in this one, then you really next week I will literally throw the white flag up on Calvin Ridley. But
so I guess it's consistency for me because Mohamed Sanu had 6 or more targets in every game, including 12 last week, which is absolutely wild.
Yeah.
Calvin Ridley has 6, 10, 1. And then 6. So, but this is what we saw last year was like the inconsistency with Calvin Ridley. And I think a lot of people thought Mohamed Sanu would go away, but he's obviously not going away. I think a lot of people, I think we still underrate. We still underrate Austin Hooper. However, I don't know how, because he's the tight end 2 through 4 weeks and he's gotten 6 or more targets in every game. So that's my issue here is that they seem to not want to emphasize Calvin Ridley outside of when they can exploit matchups. And I don't know if this is an exploitable matchup or not.
Yeah, no, I buy that. This is something I'd like to point out to the Falcons, who are no doubt listening to this show, because why wouldn't they be? You suck. You are horrible. You suck. And maybe it's because you're not throwing to Calvin Ridley. Just saying. Try to get him involved versus the Texans. But, whatever. This is my last week with Calvin Ridley. I'm starting him, and I am looking forward to my 0. Buccaneers at Saints here. Teddy Bridgewater.
And now I'm thinking about it. I want to do a kind of a burner lineup with Teddy and Michael Thomas and Jared Cook. The Bucs rank, I believe, first overall in terms of fantasy points allowed to Sorry, no, they rank third. They rank third in fantasy points allowed to running backs. They let Todd Gurley kind of go off last week, but the only reason he went off is he's got 2 short touchdowns. He still only had 16 yards on 5 attempts. Beyond that, I mean, they held Christian McCaffrey to 7.3 fantasy points. They held Tevin Coleman to 7.6, which isn't fantastic, but even Matt Breida only had 3.7. Saquon Barkley only had 7.7. He had 8 attempts for 10 yards. I mean, I'm going to start. I mean, you're going to start Alvin Kamara because I doubt you have the running backs to sit Alvin Kamara. Plus, he's involved in the passing game, and that's where the Bucs are weak in terms of against running backs. They allowed 4 or 5 targets to Saquon Barkley, 7 of 11 to Todd Gurley, 2 of 3 to Tevin Coleman for 33 yards. But I think this is going to have to be a Teddy Bridgewater game. I think it's going to be a shootout because it's 2 bad secondaries facing each other, and both teams are going to have to throw. So as a QB, I guess this is more for super flex, or if you are like super late round QB and you stream quarterbacks, Teddy Bridgewater isn't the worst option this week.
And by the way, Michael Thomas, anyone playing DFS, Michael Thomas in DraftKings is 6,600, which is, if you play DFS, you know that to be a ridiculous oversight. I don't know what he did to deserve this. Even with Teddy in there, he's the target machine. So if someone was asking us earlier for must-play DFS, Michael Thomas is one of those guys for dollar. It's got to be, regardless of matchup, is just one of the best plays of the day for just how cheap he is. So just, take that on. So on the other side of the ball, how about Ronald Jones? I know me and Sam are, well, no, I'm taking this from a different perspective. He talked about him. He'll talk about him from a start sit perspective in season long. In DFS, he's like sub 5. He's like $4,800. And for a guy that I'm thinking is out finally the guy in Tampa Bay, I think you got to play him against the Saints just because of how cheap it is. It's the ROI is going to be fine. Maybe in season long, you'll have better options. But as far as dollar for dollar in DFS, I think he's one of those guys I love for GPP just because of how cheap he is, if he truly is going to be the bell cow. But Sam will tell you all about why he doesn't like him in season long.
Right. Well, I mean, the Saints have allowed the 5th fewest fantasy points to running backs. I mean, Ezekiel Elliott had a fine game last week, but that was because of his involvement in the passing game. He had only 35 yards on 18 carries. Chris Carson only had 53 on 15 carries. So basically, you would have to be saved by a Ronald Jones touchdown because Ronald Jones is not involved in the passing game. He has, I believe, 3 targets on the season. They have Dare Ogunbowale. Thank you, Aton, for teaching me how to say that. But he's just not involved in the passing game. So if he's shut down for, let's just say, 50 yards on 15 carries, you're definitely not getting – I mean, and that's why I'm scared. I get it for like a GPP start, but that's why I'm scared of him in DFS as well, is just he's got that floor of like 35 yards on 18 carries because that's what Zeke did. So, and that's where like this is going to be a throwing game because, like I said, both secondaries are bad. Both run defenses have been fantastic. The front sevens have been fantastic for both teams. And I would be avoiding Kamara in DFS. I'm avoiding Ronald Jones in DFS. I think this is going to be a wide receiver, QB, and tight end game. Though I wouldn't be trusting OJ Howard right now, but I mean, Jared Cook is a GPP play for me right now.
All right, John, what can you tell everyone that you completely disagree with both me and Sam about?
Yeah, I wish I could say it, but I'm not a fan of Rojo this week either. Even though he clearly has that feature back job, the lead back job locked down. I mean, I think Peyton Barber is still the goal line guy too. So, even if they do get in close and then, punch it in for a short touchdown, I think it's probably Barber. Don't say that name on this podcast.
How dare you?
Yeah, there it is.
All right. So, I mean, and obviously you're starting everyone else in the universe against the Saints on that offense, Jameis and Godwin and Evans. Marshawn Lattimore has been kind of picked on this year. I know he did a little bit. He did well against Cooper last week, but that was just a bad game. But people have been targeting him. He's not a cover corner that people are shying away from. Like, when some guys are out there, like Gilmore, people just aren't throwing his way. Therefore, the stats aren't looking good. People aren't afraid of Lattimore. So maybe some people would think go with Evans, but Evans has a bad history with Lattimore. Lattimore has held him down. But the Saints give up a lot of points to slot receivers. And Chris Godwin's out there versus PJ Williams, which, by the way, is the reason they give up points to slot receivers. So I don't know why the heck you're sitting Chris Godwin anywhere, but in DFS, love Chris Godwin. Even though he had a giant game last week, he could be kind of chalky every week. But yeah, Chris Godwin is due to probably have another gigantic game here. Bills at Titans. Are you starting anybody in this game, guys? Anybody?
I mean,
if I can avoid it.
I have John Brown in one lineup, I believe, just because of volume. He had a low of 5 targets against Cincinnati, which is the weirdest one because he had 11 targets against New England, 10 targets against the New York Jets. So it's kind of funny that his lowest fantasy output was against Cincinnati. But I am debating putting in Chris Thompson, who plays New England, again for John Brown this week.
That's not a crazy. When we get to that game, I'll tell you why. I actually love that play. I actually love it.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just this is going to be such a gross game because let's be realistic, John. two not good quarterbacks going against each other, and two very good defenses.
Mariota's been fine.
He's had 2 okay games.
We'll say versus the Bills is not the time to express to make a statement by launching Mariota into your lineup. This isn't the week to do it.
No, definitely not. You're going against the best pass defense in the league. But by the way, Marcus Mariota is the quarterback 9 right now in fantasy points scored. So yeah, this has
sell high.
Watch this game be a blowout.
Marcus Mariota.
Sell high.
This has everything to do with the best pass defense in the league.
Yeah.
On that, AJ Brown, he caught 3 of 3 targets for 95 yards and 2 touchdowns last week.
Yeah.
You obviously can't trust the efficiency moving forward that AJ Brown has put up because I believe he's at 20 some odd yards per reception.
Watch this game though end up being a shootout, just a touchdown party that does absolutely nothing for anyone fantasy.
That's going to be true because
Dawson Knox 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. Dawson Knox, I had forgotten. I put him as a start this week in my start sits for tight ends. The Titans have allowed the 6th most fantasy points to tight ends. I believe
Tyler Kroft is out again, I believe. So
yeah,
Devin Singletary, I think, is back, right? Singletary's going to play.
He should.
Yeah, but this is also not the week to wheel him back out there. We got a lot of Frank Gore questions. Sit them both, not this week.
But Austin Hooper. Austin Hooper last week had 9 of 11 for 133 yards. Now he's not. He's not Austin Hooper, but if there is a play this week, a streaming play this week in this game, I think it's Dawson Knox.
Yeah.
So I was wrong. Devin Singletary is inactive today.
Okay. So they're sitting in one more week.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So at least the workload is consolidated for Frank Gore. I don't know that you want. It's not a horrible matchup.
No, if it's just him, there's worse options because it's gonna. Even though it's a crappy matchup, there's probably going to be a lot of running in it regardless. So, yeah. It's going to be a shitty option, but there are worse ones. Let's go into probably one of the more exciting games of the day. In theory, the Bengals and their lateral raid offense against the Bengals here.
Against the Cardinals?
The Cardinals?
And their
what'd I say? Oh, yeah. The Cardinals at it's the Cardinals at the Bengals. Why don't we start at the wide receiver here for both teams? Christian Kirk is out, John Ross is out. So Auden Tate, how do you guys feel about him? I know everyone's all hyped up about him. I'm gonna go ahead and sit this one out this week versus the Cardinals, because I would think on most teams I have an option I'm probably happier to start than him. But what do you guys think of Tate?
I like Tate this week. I mean, he's part of my start sits. Now that my internet is starting to go wonky on me. But yeah, I mean, they haven't been awful against the pass, but they have been bad against.
Sam went off. Sam is frozen. Either that or he's holding this pose, which is truly impressive.
Just really building up the suspense on
hey, there he is. Hey, look it. We can have Sam alive on the show next to Frozen Sam.
Yeah. Sorry.
We're going to keep Frozen Sam up there.
So they haven't been, like I said, they haven't been bad against wide receivers, but they have given up a few fantasy points. They're kind of middle of the pack right now in terms of fantasy points against wide receivers. But John Ross is out. They will likely need to throw because that secondary or because that defense is bad. And I think Arizona is going to score points. So I like on Tate this week. And he's had, I believe, 10 and 6 targets the last 2 weeks.
Yep. What do you think? What do you think, John?
I mean, I think it's a Joe Mixon game.
Yeah.
But yeah, Auden Tate is he's going to be pretty boom bust. This could be a high scoring game where, everybody gets in on the touchdown party. So there's definitely a chance. I think people are probably a little too excited about Auden Tate. He's still Auden Tate. He's still slow, and it's a nice matchup. Definitely, this has not been a very good offense to this point, particularly in the passing game. Their O-line is trash. I don't know how much they're going to necessarily exploit this matchup. They're going to get to run a lot of plays, but I think that they're going to be best served running the ball, getting Joe Mixon involved.
Yeah.
So I just think you can start Auden Tate. He's kind of a flex option.
Auden Tate or Sterling Shepard?
Shepard for me.
Is he below those guys we were talking about earlier, Tate, for you, Sam, or you like him above some of those guys?
I like him above some of those guys. We've seen what John Ross has been involved.
Mm-hmm.
Well, such a different player.
I completely understand, but he's still going to get a ton of volume. Then again, maybe Eifert sees that volume this week.
Tyler Eifert. We'll get to the tight ends in a second.
But I have Cincinnati Bengals super stack this week with Dalton, Mixon, Auden Tate, and Tyler Eifert.
Yes.
And it's obviously GPP, but I just, with the matchup and the two horrendous defenses, I like Auden Tate this week, especially because of the volume he's got in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah. Hey, and then GPP, I am stacking in tight end and the flex. I'm stacking. This is not an all lineup thing. This is just a thing I'm trying. I'm stacking Eifert and Uzomah together because no matter what, I want that production against Arizona. And if it's combined for how cheap it is, I can get all that for 5,000. Yeah, give it to me. I don't want to be burned with Eifert if like Uzomah hits. So that allows me to pay up. I don't know. We'll see, because I've punted in showdowns. I punt positions and it works out. So it's probably not the best thing for 1 week, but it's really cheap on DraftKings. So it's not something that is entirely crazy. I agree with John about Joe Mixon, though. Arizona's given up the 8th most rushing yards to running backs. And Geo is not really a factor this year. So even if they're going through the air, Joe Mixon, we know, does catch passes. He's not like, some of these other guys like Marlon Mack who don't catch too many. So I think Joe Mixon is huge here. And obviously both slot wide receivers, you're never sitting anyway, but Larry Fitzgerald and Tyler Boyd from a DFS perspective are way too cheap considering that Kirk and Ross are out no matter what. So who else do you guys like in this game besides whatever, let's get into the tight ends. You've had really good tight ends take advantage of Arizona. So for a while, we weren't sure if Arizona was really that bad against the tight end, or they were just facing really good tight ends, because they kind of did to that point. And then Will Dissly, who I actually think is, we talked about him. We dedicated a whole show to him earlier this week about how good he was. So this is the test. Do we think that the tight end position is going to take advantage of Arizona here, especially with Ross out? or do we think that this is the week where we finally learn that there is a limit to how bad a defense can be against a position?
Eifert gets a fair amount of targets. I don't have that number in front of me, but especially in the red zone, they've been looking for him anyways. So the combination of the way they use Eifert and the fact that the Cardinals just don't really seem to even try to defend against tight ends, I think that there's a good chance here that Eifert gets in the end zone at the very least. Not going to get you a lot of yards, but he never will. So as far as for the tight end landscape, I think that Eifert is very startable this week.
Four red zone targets this year. Tyler Eifert, first on the team. Second on the team is Auden Tate, by the way, ahead of Tyler Boyd and everyone else on the squad.
The backup tight end. It makes sense.
So Eifert's had 6, 5, 1, and 5 targets. So he had that one target against Buffalo. I mean, obviously, but yeah, I mean, he's gotten targets this week. He just doesn't get yards for anything.
Yep.
So, why don't we talk about Arizona real quick before we move on? That when Christian Kirk went down, well, the previous week when Damier Byrd went down, everyone's like, "Oh, well, Isabella finally get in," and I said, "No, you'll need one of Kirk or Fitzgerald to go down probably for him to move into the slot." Now a slot position is opened up, and they say Andy Isabella is going to be on the outside and he's not going to start. What the hell are they doing? Do they just not like Andy Isabella? And can you trust anyone else? I mean, are you starting, if you're desperate, are you happy to start Keyshawn Johnson? Or are you just kind of, even though this is a good matchup, do you just have to avoid this because we don't know what the hell Kingsbury's doing?
I mean, so first and foremost, Isabella was not a slot receiver in college.
But no, that just seemed like the way they were going to use him is all,
But you're not going to move Fitzgerald out of the slot. Like, that's just not going to happen. Like you said, in order for Andy Isabella to move inside, it's going to have to be Fitzgerald going down. Keyshawn Johnson, has been hyped since the offseason. He was kind of a lower kind of Hakeem Butler, but somehow he's better than Hakeem Butler right now. But regardless, Kirk
Butler's on IR, by the way.
Yeah. But now you derailed me. That had nothing to do with
I had to defend Hakeem Butler. I love Hakeem Butler.
I love Hakeem Butler too, but Keyshawn Johnson has been better than Hakeem Butler thus far.
Because Hakeem Butler's on IR.
Yeah, but he was also better in the preseason. So relax. Keyshawn, I mean, if he steps into that Christian Kirk role, gets a significant target share, or steps into a role that gets a significant target share. So, I mean, if you're desperate this week, and I have a league where I am desperate this week, I don't see Keyshawn as that bad of a start, especially against his secondary.
No, I agree. I mean, you have to be really deep. I'm trying to think of a good example, to be honest, of where you'd be considering that. I mean, go ahead, John. You have some thoughts here. I'm going to try to think of a comp in the meantime.
I mean, Auden Tate is kind of in that same range. Maybe AJ Brown might be kind of a guy that I would consider Keyshawn Johnson against. They're probably pretty close for me, but yeah, I think that a lot of the volume is going to go to the combination of Larry Fitzgerald and David Johnson, both through the pass and in the running game. So, I mean, I think Keyshawn is startable as a flex, especially if you're in one of those leagues that's got like 2 or 3 flexes. I think Keyshawn is going to be a consideration for you. But, yeah, you got to go pretty deep.
Who are you starting this week, Keyshawn Johnson or Terry McLaurin?
I mean, it's got to be McLaurin based off of volume, but I hate it a lot.
I'm sitting McLaurin for literally the water boy.
Pretty much,
but I've been pretty strong on that.
Yeah, he gets Stephon Gilmore coming off an injury,
and more importantly, Colt McCoy throwing him the ball.
Well,
to Stephon Gilmore. He's throwing the ball to Stephon Gilmore, not Terry McLaurin. Let's get that clear.
Strike 3, you're out. Yeah, I'll go Keyshawn there.
But that has nothing to do with McLaurin's talent and everything to do with McCoy throwing Gilmore's way. This is going to be an ugly one, folks. Which, by the way, is the next game, Patriots at Redskins. Before we get into that, we have a question from Nick Faber in the chat. Starting MVS over Cooper this week, crazy or acceptable?
That's too cute for me.
I know Jair Alexander. I'm a homer. Check it out. He is one of the most underrated corners, and anyone paying attention just knows that's true. I do expect him to be limiting Cooper like crazy this week, but that is risky. I mean, you don't sit Cooper. I would think that you'd be able to fit them both in your lineup. I can't start MVS over Cooper, but if that worked out, would I be shocked? Not even a little bit.
I mean, that's going to be a home run play. Let's just say you face Chris Carson, Tyler Lockett, Will Disley, and Russell Wilson for some goddamn reason, and you need a home run. Maybe that's the play, but I don't know how you sit Cooper this week. Over MVS.
Main thing too is like I know people love MVS, and he was obviously the number 2 target with Devontae out, but I'm not so positive it's going to be that great because I love Jimmy Graham this week. I expect Geronimo to come out of his cave this week. I expect Aaron Jones to be a lot more involved. I don't know if this will be like a slam dunk big game for MVS or not, but I think Cooper has a tough matchup too. So I still go Cooper just in case. I mean, you can't sit Amari Cooper, right? You just can't.
Definitely not for MVS. That's just too cute for me.
Well, I mean, like on the nose, MVS looks like a slam dunk play this week just with Devontae out, but I don't think it is, well, as a Packers fan here. Pick one flex: Sony Michel, Michael Gallup, LaShawn McCoy, or Matt Breida. We all know John's answer.
I assume you're actually going to be surprised on that.
All right. I mean, for me, this isn't even close. It's Sony Michel, not even close for me this week, even though this is, I don't know if we call this a Calvin Ridley situation, but this with Rex Burkhead out, the only running back on that team that was both taking touches on the ground and in the air. If he's out, I think White stays where he is. Sony finally gets all the groundwork unless Damian Harris comes out, which again wouldn't shock me because of Bill Belichick. But for me Sony Michel in the game versus Washington, where they're probably going to be up big the whole time. I think Michel finally comes through and has a big game for everybody.
Yeah, no, that's exactly where I'm at. Sony is a top 10 play for me at running back. And I mean, a big piece of this, and we kind of talked about it earlier with the wide receiver position, but sometimes we have a hard time separating, fantasy from reality. And in fantasy, Sony's been awful. In reality, though, Sony Michel, he's protecting the football. He's not fumbling. He's getting positive yardage. And that's all Bill Belichick really asks for. So it's not like Sony Michel is necessarily in any kind of danger of losing his job. That whole workload goes to him. Rex Burkhead right now is the better back, but Rex Burkhead's out. So, yeah, Sony Michel just monopolizes that backfield today.
Listen, New England's going to smoke Washington, and they're going to go up big in the first half. I would not be surprised to see Sony Michel just get a ton of volume in the second half to run out the clock.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about Jay Gruden for a minute?
I mean, the rumors there.
I'm not talking about the on-field rumors. I'm talking about the fun off-field ones.
I don't know how you give a coach an ultimatum going up against New England. That's the tough part. Like, you have to win this game. You're not going to. Just fire him now.
Sam just saw.
I just now saw it. Oh my God!
He's apparently going out partying with young girls and doing drugs. There, getting videotaped and smiling.
You think Dan Snyder has? You think Dan Snyder has these like?
Yeah, there's look it up. Video. There's video of Jay Gruden out there smoking weed and partying with girls, with some like college girls, which is. When they get crushed, when they get crushed, they now have they've got not only do they suck, but Jay Gruden has been inappropriate. Absolutely.
I honestly, if that's the case, and with all these videos, I don't see how he survives after this week.
Unless they pull out literally a miracle win, which let's be honest, come on. I don't know if Nate the Great is trolling us or not with this. Again, if you are not, this is no offense intended. Is Chris Godwin a smart start?
Holy crap. And then he went with pick 2 wide receivers, MVS, Michael Thomas, Keenan Allen, Chris Godwin, Juju.
Wow.
What? Are you in an 8-team league? Sorry.
Seriously.
I don't know. And then whatever the off chance that this is some kind of like, DFS thing, or he is in an 8-team league. Let's have some fun with this.
Chris
Who
Godwin
Who
might be the number one wide receiver this week.
Yeah. I mean, whatever. Let's
Keenan
just say
Allen
this
could be too, though.
Oh yeah, I'll go with.
Chris. I mean, I think Chris Harris is going to shadow him, so I don't know about that.
Chris Harris doesn't go into the slot anymore. He's on Mike Williams,
which is stupid. Like
those two, give me Godwin and Michael Thomas. By the way,
yeah, I agree.
I'm going Michael Thomas and Keenan Allen.
You can't go wrong with Keenan Allen. But hey, Nate the Great here, 10-team league. Who's your running backs? I'm just curious. I mean, and you say start two. I mean, you can't. I mean, you're not start. You have a running back so good, you're starting in the flex. You're not starting 3 of those guys. I'm just, we won't spend too much time on this, but you answer us and we'll get back to you. Tay Lucas 21. By the way, I traded Zeke, Sammy Watkins, Chris Thompson, I assume, and Herndon for OBJ, Darren Waller, LaShawn McCoy, and Matt Breida. Getting some hate. All right, that was a lot to take in. So traded Zeke for OBJ. That's a big downgrade. Sammy Watkins for Waller. It's probably
this really depends on what the scoring is. If it's tight end premium, it's a little bit better. But just Zeke alone makes this super lopsided to me.
Yeah. We don't know what Herndon's going to offer, but Waller's a beast. OBJ is probably going to end up being overall disappointment for where you drafted him.
I would say Chris Thompson and Breida are pretty much equal at this point in PPR.
The only thing with McCoy and Breida is with all the other options on their team and with Tevin Coleman coming back healthy at some point, if it's not today, who's game time decision, I don't know where his value sits. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what you want from Asari Lucas, but yeah, that was I would have wanted the Zeke side there. Literally, I didn't care what the other 3 guys you even traded away. I don't know. No matter what the scoring is, I'm still not happy with that.
Yeah, I'm not.
See, I didn't mind it, but we don't need to spend a ton of time. I kind of liked it for his side, but we've got about half an hour before game time, so I'll just let it.
Oh, you're trying to keep us on track. Good, because I'm not doing it like I never do. PPR for running back 2 from Freddie 1-Up. James Conner or Derrick Henry. James Conner, no chance of no.
Yeah,
no
against Buffalo, Derrick Henry is a borderline sit for me. So James Conner.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So let's try to run through more of these games. Ravens at Steelers, like we just talked about there with James Conner. Let's start with the passing game. The Ravens have given up like the 3rd most passing yards, I believe, in the NFL. I mean, they are giving up a ton. And the only reason their rushing defense is listed as good as it is because everyone's throwing on them, which I think James Conner is a fine play this week. I think I even tweeted out something about it. Don't always look at just things like rushing yard totals for team defenses as the end all be all. You have to look at context. But what do you guys think of Mason Rudolph? I mean, obviously in Superflex, you start everybody. But do you think he has the ability to give value going forward to his wide receivers? I mean, what do you think of Juju and the rest of the gang here?
First and foremost, people need to stop reacting to one game because Juju was on pace for 75 catches on 122 targets for almost 1,300 yards and 5 touchdowns. Now he would have been less than what he did last year, but that's still a wide receiver 1. And that includes a week with Mason Rudolph. So stop reacting. Last week was not a good week. And I mean, it's fine.
They kind of didn't need Mason Rudolph. They didn't need a lot of that last week. I mean, the Bengals, you can just grind it out on the ground. That's what they did.
And yeah, I think this week it's a decent matchup through the air. Like Matt was mentioning, Baltimore has given up the 3rd most yards to wide receivers this season. Last week, Jarvis Landry went for 167 yards. The previous week, McCole Hardman had 97. Demarcus Robinson had 43. Sammy Watkins had 64. They all had double-digit fantasy games. Damiere Byrd even had a double-digit fantasy game in PPR. They had The Cardinals had 3 double-digit fantasy games. The previous week, Preston Williams and Devontae Parker had double-digit fantasy days.
Yep. Tay Lucas in the chat says, you think Pittsburgh's offense won't look like it did last week? I think we all expect them to look pretty good at home versus the Ravens this week, actually. That's I think Connor and everyone. Deontay Johnson is a borderline probably must-start flex option.
Yep.
There's probably not too many guys I like over him because he's catching up to the target share lead in a big way, especially with Mason at quarterback. So, I love most guys in this game, really on both sides.
Here's the last 3 quarterback games against Baltimore: 349 yards, 374 yards, 342 yards. It's not the same Baltimore Ravens defense that it used to be.
Right, and really, I don't know if they move their cornerbacks around or if Marlon Humphrey stays on one side of the field, but Jimmy Smith hasn't been healthy all season, so they basically have one cornerback that you don't want to go up against. But even then, like, they're people or teams are moving their wide receivers around and they're getting everybody involved. And with the way that Baltimore scores, generally teams have to pass the ball. So, and with Pittsburgh's secondary not being good, even with Minkah Fitzpatrick, they're susceptible to Lamar Jackson or just the Ravens in general scoring. So I think
chasing points.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mason Rudolph's fine. Tay Lucas brings up that he's worried that they'll run short passing offense, but generally, Juju plays from the slot, or at least he plays a significant amount from the slot. So he should be involved in that short passing game. Just because he had 3 receptions for 15 yards does not mean you sell him, does not mean I'm not worried about him for the rest of the season after one bad game.
Yeah. Question here, Nick Faber. Nick's got all sorts of questions for us today. This is an interesting one. They're starting Damian Williams over Miles Sanders and Josh Jacobs in PPR, yay or nay?
Yeah.
That Miles Sanders thing is so questionable because, like, he looks so good. It seems like it should be like if there was going to be a week for him to finally do it, it's this week. But obviously, the usage of Jordan Howard kind of throws that out the window. It's Damian's first week back, and I do agree with John that he'll probably be looking at some kind of pitch count, which I just think hurts McCoy. But yeah, maybe I'm not as happy starting Damian Williams. But Josh Jacobs has such a terrible matchup. So I mean, oh my God, this is tough. What do you guys think here? This is a tough one.
The Colts are the worst against running backs. And now that I think about it, on that one of those questions, at least they're the worst in terms of DVOA. But one of those questions that back had McCoy as a starter. Now I don't hate that as much. I mean, they haven't been the worst against fantasy running backs, but they still give up double digits every week. I just the matchup for Josh Jacobs and the usage for Miles Sanders scare the shit out of me. So I definitely, if Damian Williams, let's just say, gets 4 targets, catches 3, and he gets, 50 yards on the ground, I think that's better than what you're going to get from either of the other two.
I'm going to literally, my only feeling is gut feeling, and I'm starting Miles Sanders at the 3, and I got nothing for you for reasoning other than I feel like Damian Williams is just going to be brought around slowly. It wouldn't shock me if any of these guys, I mean, it's literally coin flip after coin flip here. I'll go with Miles Sanders, but I'm not confident in that call at all. That is a tough one right there.
I'm pretty confident with Miles Sanders just on the matchup, and he's still getting a significant usage. It's Jordan Howard is still taking some volume, but Miles Sanders is also pretty involved in the passing game. I have no reservations at all with Miles Sanders today. And then I'll take Josh Jacobs over Damian Williams too, just based on volume. I know it's a tough matchup. I get it. But
that is the next game, by the way, so we can jump right into it. Bears at Oakland in London.
That is so messed up for the Raiders, by the way. That is like you finally get you actually get the best defense in the league, and you get Khalil Mack and the revenge game and everything, and it's you look on the schedule and it's a home game, and then find out that you're going to London for this supposed home game. So, yeah, this is just they're like they don't even have home field advantage here. There's just nothing to like about the Raiders, other than the fact that Josh Jacobs is going to run the hell out of the ball.
He's not.
Well, he's going to try. Why don't we say he's going to try to run
He'll get you 18 carries for 18 yards. Well, I'll give you the volume.
You need a point per carry league, I think, to start Jacobs this week, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't love him this week, but I mean, what else on the Raiders is there to
Darren Waller? That's it.
Darren Waller. Do we not think they're going to throw him in a? We don't think they're going to throw him in a treasure chest and then lock the key. Or throw it away.
20 targets.
I know. I feel the same way about Waller than I do Jacobs. 20 targets and 20 carries. I'm not sure gets you much against the Bears this weekend.
I mean, I get it, but there's literally no other pass catcher there. Like,
yeah. I'm interested in the Bears side. Why don't we talk about that? It's far more interesting. Chase Daniel looked pretty good, but it's hard not to look better than Mitchell Trubisky. In DFS for GPP, I'm actually throwing out a lineup there where I'm stacking him and Allen Robinson against this Raiders defense.
Yeah, I actually like Chase Daniel. I think he kind of unlocks all the pass catchers for them. I mean, you saw Trey Burton get 5 targets. You saw Javon Wims randomly get 5 targets. Mm-hmm. All of these guys all of a sudden are in play, I think, and they're all startable. I think Tariq Cohen is in for a flex-worthy game at least.
And Taylor Gabriel the previous week before sitting out at 3 touchdowns. Do they have anyone else catching the ball on that team? I heard there was another wide receiver to start the year, but he's been missing. He's been on a milk carton ever since.
Yeah, John Doe. Adam Shaheen maybe even gets in on this a little bit. I'm not saying you start him, but I wouldn't be surprised to see everybody get involved in it. All of a sudden, Chase Daniel attempted 30 passes in relief of Mitchell Trubisky. All of a sudden, this becomes less of an RPO type of offense and a little bit more stand in the pocket and throw the ball. So, the pass catchers to me are all viable. I think Javon Wims is definitely kind of a long shot type of guy that you could plug in.
By the way, if anyone didn't know what we were talking about Anthony Miller.
Yeah.
Who has 10 targets on the year. Fucking year. What do you think, Sam? What do you think is Chicago?
I think I don't mind Chase Daniel as a QB2 in Superflex, a streamable option at this point if you have like Josh Allen, Marcus Mariota, and the bye week guys. Like if you are streaming QB, I don't mind Chase Daniel this week because Oakland's defense isn't good. That secondary definitely is not good. So I like that. Allen Robinson's gotten 7 targets in 3 straight games, so he's always going to be the pass catcher 1 on this offense. Tell me what to believe about David Montgomery right now.
His workload has gone up literally every week.
It has. But he has just not looked good. And you can talk about whatever you want about the defenses he's faced, but the dude dances. He does not have explosion. He has good contact balance and he can break tackles. But other than that, he just has not looked good this season. Yep. So I'm not trusting David Montgomery this week. And I would I think Javon, like John said, Javon Wims isn't a bad option if you're desperate. But I would rather just have Allen Robinson, and then everybody else is just kind of like maybe they spread out the ball a ton.
Yeah. I mean, to highlight how bad Chicago has been under Trubisky, there's 4 players on this team, only 4 that even have red zone targets. And one of them is JP Holtz. Who? Right. That's the kind of the point we're making here. Moving on to the 4:00 games, which are only 2. I don't know who makes the schedule here. Broncos at Chargers. We got a question here in the chat from Nate the Great. Is it wise to start Melvin coming off of his holdout?
Yes.
Would you start both him and Eckler in the same lineup for September?
Yes.
Yeah, I would do that. Yeah.
They have given up.
In fact, I think you probably have to if you've got them both.
They've given up the 3rd most yards on the ground, but that includes that 225-yard effort from Leonard Fournette last week. But this has been the bane of their existence for years now, is tight ends and running backs. Like, they can shut down wide receivers with the best of them, but tight ends and running backs, they just have not found, since 2015, they have not been able to cover tight ends, and they've not been able to stop the run.
Who do you like? Do you think that the Chargers probably, I don't have my projections, but probably 1,500 carries in the game today? Do you think that takes some of the shine off of Phillip Rivers and Keenan Allen?
I think a little bit. Their secondary hasn't looked great, but they've been able to shut down QBs and wide receivers. But now Bradley Chubb is out, so I don't know what that means for this pass rush. I mean, it's obviously a downgrade, but they just have not given up fantasy points to wide receivers or QBs this year.
It's going to be, I'm not too worried about it, only because I feel like the Broncos, that the players have got to be a little torn down at this point. Some like tough losses after tough losses in games they definitely could have won. Now you got the rumors out today that they're looking to break this thing down. After Chubb's out. So, I don't know how on the road, kind of in LA, the road, whatever, they're in an empty building. It's just hard for anyone to get up, and teams that need to get up are the defensive players. Offense, you don't really need to psych yourself up necessarily, but they obviously are going to take pride in what they do. But it's tough what's going on with the Broncos right now. What do you like on their end from a fantasy standpoint? I know you guys are both Broncos fans, for everyone who doesn't know that.
I think
not a lot. Philip Lindsay, kind of.
I honestly think this could be a high scoring game. We saw last week that Flacco threw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. I think you can start Sutton, you can start Sanders this week. I get Casey Hayward's there, but there seems to be enough volume there for those two to be viable. Obviously, Noah Fant had his first touchdown.
Never going to get that.
No, I and it's only because of one person that has plugged that into my head. But I just don't know how much you can trust him the rest of the season. He definitely has not looked great to start the season. Of course, Flacco really hasn't targeted the tight ends all that much. But yeah, I think I'm okay with Lindsey, Sanders, and Sutton this week.
Yeah, one thing that's interesting is it's completely a two-man show in the passing game for the most part. Sutton's got has 8 targets in the red zone. He's caught 7 of them. I don't know how if that doesn't build your confidence as a quarterback and throwing to a guy, I don't know what does. But Sanders has 7 and he's caught 5 of them. No one else with more than 2. So it's obviously, a two-man game down near the end zone. But yeah, you start both of those guys for sure. Going to Green Bay at Dallas in what should be a pretty freaking good game. Devontae Adams is out. And Ezekiel Elliott starting for the Cowboys. So we're about to see what the heck Matt LaFleur is made of, if he's made of anything other than craft, singles, at least his brain. The Jordan Howard experience last week as a Packers fan was one tough to watch. And this defense is designed to give up rushing yards and short rushing work because they are looking to take away stuff that's deep and intermediate. Let's see how that worked out for them last week. Can they adjust? And if they adjust, it doesn't matter because it's Ezekiel Elliott, who's probably full system, all systems go at this point, looking to have a monster game probably against this Packers rush defense. So what are you guys just expecting from a game script here, which I think is the biggest question mark? Everyone's jumping on Geronimo Graham and MVS because Devontae's out. But, do we think this is going to be possibly high scoring or freaking low scoring? Because this could go any way. It really can.
I think this is a sneaky shootout. And Vegas actually agrees with that. They've got the over-under at 47, which is the same as the Bengals-Cardinals, which we already said that looks like a touchdown party. I think that they're going to hit the over on this. I think that this turns into a shootout. Like I said, you get Michael Gallup back, that adds a dimension to the Cowboys offense. And I think the Packers might still end up chasing points. Even though it's a good defense. We saw Philadelphia move the ball on them last week. Carson Wentz went for 3 touchdowns. I think the Cowboys can move the ball and force the Packers into a pass heavy game script here.
Yeah, I don't know how much I agree because
none of it.
Well, so
ever
the only reason that Carson Wentz had a good week last week was because of those 3 touchdowns. I mean, they only gave up 160 yards through the air. That pass defense is extremely good. Their pass rushers are very good. They have Preston Smith. Rashawn Gary got in on, I believe, against the Broncos. I don't know how well he did last week.
He's been banged up, unfortunately. But
who's the defensive tackle?
What are you looking for?
I'm looking for the Green Bay Packer fan to know who his players are, Matt.
Well, and are you looking for, like, I don't know, we have
who's
quite a
their
few
star
people.
defensive? Oh my God, I can't.
By the way, Tyron Smith, left tackle for the Cowboys, he's out. That makes things a little bit more difficult.
That's valid. I think the way this becomes a shootout is that Ezekiel Elliott eats, and I think he is going to absolutely eat. We know Blake Martinez isn't fantastic in coverage. He's very good against the run, but they have been absolutely annihilated by running backs this season. So I think this is going to be a huge Ezekiel Elliott week. And I'm hoping that last week, though they lost, I hope LaFleur realizes that they need to unleash Aaron Rodgers. Because he had his best game last week against Philadelphia. Obviously, that secondary is not good, but I mean, it's Aaron Rodgers. We know Aaron Rodgers is a Hall of Fame quarterback. He had almost 34 points last week. They need him to get it going in order to be successful this season. Yeah. I like Aaron Jones this week because he's going to get basically 100% of the running back touches finally. And unfortunately, it took a bad hit and injury to Jamal Williams and concussion to get him to that point. But I think that they need to get, hopefully this opens things up for Aaron Jones. So
don't worry about Dexter Williams, by the way. They activated Trey Carson. That's how little confidence they have in Dexter Williams. So this will be the Aaron Jones show.
Kenny Clark, by the way, Matt.
Nose tackle.
Yeah. So I expect the fans of their respective teams to know their teams. But
I don't know. We have quite a Dean Lowry, Montravius Adams.
You knew who I was talking about.
The guy that you were
really kind of slow played that.
The guy we really needed was Mike Daniels, and he's on fucking Detroit.
Although he's injured. I mean, I don't like Dak and Amari all that much this week. I don't think you can sit them, but I think you have to temper expectations. But I think this is a Zeke week, and I'm hoping this is an Aaron Rodgers and Aaron Jones week as well.
Some people online have finally caught on to the fact that the offensive coordinator we signed in Green Bay, I shouldn't say we have nothing to do with it. But his track record was getting out aggressively early in the game and then slow playing the offense the rest of the way. That is not the way to go. Ooh. But don't try to blame the offensive coordinator. This is still Matt LaFleur's team. He was brought in to run offense, and he's done a shitty job. So we'll see. They need to tie up the rush defense, but in a game on the road against Ezekiel Elliott, it's easier said than done. Jair Alexander can take care of Amari Cooper to a degree. Michael Gallup is just coming back. I don't even know what to do here. I love
Michael Gallup this week. Sorry, it's a really nice matchup for him. Even if Kevin King actually plays, I still think that's a plus matchup for Michael Gallup. He got 15 targets and over 200 yards between his first 2 games before he went out with the injury, and he's only been out 2 weeks.
Is he playing?
Yes.
Gallup, yeah, he's in.
Yes, he's active, and I don't think that it was the type of injury that you have to baby him back. He was only out 2 weeks. I think that he's a full go this week, even though there are reports to the contrary. I mean, when that can be the plan going into the game, that's fine. But as soon as you get into the game and you find out that you need to put points on the board, Michael Gallup's going to be on the field.
Yep. I think this game will come down to how efficient Green Bay can be at getting to Dak. That'll help tremendously. So we'll see. They got to Carson a little bit. They need to just stay aggressive, but this is interesting enough for anyone from a fantasy perspective on Green Bay's side. Everyone's worth starting. MVS, you kind of have to start. Like I said, I would still temper expectations on what to expect there, but you have to go with him. I think Jimmy Graham is a fine start. And Geronimo Allison is a desperation flex play because Devontae is out. Colts, actually, we have from Larry Monkey in the chat when we answer this question, because I continue to ignore Curtis Samuel or Nelson Aguilar. Curtis Samuel, yes, definitely Curtis Samuel.
Yep.
Nelson Aguilar had 0 targets last week.
Yeah, 0.
So, yeah, it's definitely Curtis Samuel.
Yep, Curtis Samuel actually with a very good matchup as well this week on top of.
Yeah, Jalen Ramsey's out. AJ Bouye probably gets DJ Moore. So, yeah, Curtis Samuel.
That is it for the Sunday afternoon games. A Sunday night, Colts at Chiefs.
That's going to be a high-scoring game.
Yeah, T.Y. Hilton looks like he's a go. Marlon Mack is a game-time decision. So, let's just say that you have to make a decision now, because you have Marlon Mack, and your only other options for flex that you would maybe tilt to, that you would pivot to, are starting during the day. Are you waiting this out for Mack, or are you just going the other direction to be safe? I think you just. I don't know what you do there. I think you pretty much, if you have anyone semi-usable, you just got to start the other person.
I mean, that's tough because this is a good matchup for Marlon Mack.
It is.
How
about this? Let's say you have Josh Jacobs, and that's a bad matchup. Do you start him for sure because he's playing, or do you hope that Mack plays? I mean, hopefully, if you own Mack, you own Jordan Wilkins in this situation. Like, you can still do that before game time. If you have him, make sure you have him, or Naheem Hines would be even better if he's on your waiver wire. But
I'm taking the risk. I think Josh Jacobs' matchup is so bad that, like, there's just no point. Like, you would get – so it's basically you get 5 points versus 0 points, or 5 points versus 15 points for me, and I would rather take the risk.
How about you, John?
Yeah.
We'll throw Wayne Gallman in there with Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, it's still same thing for me. I'll risk it with Marlon Mack. But like you said, I mean, you pick up Jordan Wilkins, you pick up Naheem Hines, you could even pick up, Raheem Mostert or Dontrell Hilliard or D'Ernest Johnson from the Monday night game, just in case. But plan on Marlon Mack, but just have a contingency plan.
Yeah, I know. How do you feel about we already went, I don't think we have to get into McCoy and Williams too much here, because we kind of already did that throughout the entire show. Sammy Watkins looks like he's going to play. His target share has gone down every week since week 1 when he had that, DeMarcus Robinson continues to go up and up and up and up. And then McCole Hardman just kind of sitting in the middle, waiting for his big play. You just have to start all of them, right? I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. Against the Colts, I mean, if you have them, you're probably starting all of them.
I mean, in PPR, yeah, all of them are getting volume, and Patrick Mahomes throws for 300 yards. Like, that's his floor at this point. So all of them are going to get volume. Hardman probably gets more of the over top volume. But yeah, I mean, I'm fine with starting all 3 of those guys.
Who do you guys think is the wide receiver 1 in terms of your Patrick Mahomes? You drop back. Who's the first? All 3 are on the field. Who do you think's the first guy he's looking to?
Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
So of the wide receivers, DeMarcus Robinson. I'm going to say I think that you probably have better options than Sammy Watkins. He's the last of the 3 for me, based on, first of all, his health. Second, his declining target share. And third, the fact that he's lined up with Pierre Desir, their top cover corner. So
if you hold McCole Hardman and Watkins and only had spot for 1, you start Hardman over Watkins?
Yeah, I'm taking Hardman.
I would think so too, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, view it like this. Hardman is not Tyreek Hill, but he takes that Tyreek Hill role. So he's always like on the verge of a 50-yard touchdown at any point in time in the game.
Yeah, I know. I get that. It would be tough for me to do that. I mean, I think DeMarcus Robinson, I'm definitely starting over that.
Well, here, I'll say this. It depends on what you need. Again, if you're facing a team that is a juggernaut, I guess on paper, and you need a home run, go with Hardman. If you need a floor, I think it's Watkins.
Yeah. God, Watkins, he still has 41 targets on the year. So, I mean,
I really don't trust even his floor this week. It's such a bad matchup for him.
It's a bad one. And then the last game of the day we'll jump into before we're actually going to get done on time. We got 6 minutes to cover the Cleveland Browns at the San Francisco 49ers, which
I low-key hate the shit out of this game.
I high-key hate the shit out of this game.
Well, I mean, and whether this is a real 49ers defense or not, we'll find out. But they have been fantastic in the first 3 weeks, and they've been good against the run and the pass. So, and they added D Ford in the offseason. They added Quan Alexander. They added Nick Bosa. Jaquiski Tart, I think, has been healthy this season. It looks like, oh my God, I keep losing names. Cornerback. Richard Sherman is somewhat back to his old self after the Achilles injury. Mm-hmm. It's hard to trust anybody right now going against the 49ers. So
is there anyone in this entire game you will start confidently? There's plenty of guys who must start. But is there anyone you actually feel good about?
I always feel good about Nick Chubb. I feel good about Chubb. You can separate that and use it how you will. But yeah, I mean, Nick Chubb's always going to be like, and I will continue to say this, he is one of, if not the best rushing running backs in the game. And we saw that last week. So John and I on Superflex Super Show, we do the green light, yellow light, red light. Everybody was on the Browns was a yellow light for me. Like, you have to temper expectations against this defense. Baker had an okay game last week, but he still does not look right. And he's going up up against a good pass defense. I think the only one that you can really trust right now or in this game is Landry, because I don't like I said, they have given up fantasy points to slot receivers. That's the only one I can trust. OBJ hasn't looked right with Baker not looking right. You're not trusting Demetrius Harris right now, even though I believe he has 2 touchdowns in back-to-back games, or a touchdown in back-to-back games. But I'm not trusting anybody for the Browns overly except for Landry. And then on the other side, I don't even know if I trust Kittle. Like, that pass deep offense is so bad, and Jimmy G is so bad. And now you have Tevin Coleman maybe coming back, so that limits both Mostert and Breda. So it's just, and then do you trust any of those wide receivers at this point? No.
Denzel Ward and Greedy Williams are out, by the way.
Yeah. But even last week they were out, and they shut down the Ravens, except for one 50-yard touchdown pass.
Yeah. What you're doing is you're starting everyone like you do normally, and then you're going to cry a little bit later when you see what happens. That's all you can do, really. Tevin Coleman will come back, and you'll agonize over who to start, and then Jeff Wilson will still come in and get 2 touchdowns. So, that is what it is. Final rundown on some of the important injuries. Juju Smith-Schuster is going to be in. Tyrell Williams is out. Kenny Stills is inactive. Devin Singletary is out. Vance McDonald is active. And Mike Williams is going to play versus the Broncos. I don't know if I missed any. We don't know about Tevin Coleman yet. I don't know if I missed any particularly important ones.
No.
Damian Williams is in. Sammy Watkins is in. And Gordon and Eckler are going to play in tandem. So we said they're both worth playing. Any final thoughts before the games kick off, boys?
Go Cardinal! Go St. Louis Cardinals.
You have a problem with the Arizona Cardinals?
I mean, I don't care.
Go both Cardinals. All Cardinals go. What's up, John? Anything?
Nah. I'm back from vacation and just happy to be talking football again.
Awesome. Yeah, Matt LaFleur. Maybe throw the ball a few times and maybe try to talk to Patton about stopping the running backs. That'd be swell. So thank you for listening to FFMercs Live Week 5, regardless of what it says on the screen. We'll get this, like John said pre-show, we'll get this right by the time the season's over. We'll get all the kinks out. So, yeah, thank you for listening to the show. Enjoy football. See you, everybody.
Okay, bye. Love you.